Hey, it's Eric G. Around the House is sponsored by Baldwin Hardware. For 75 years, Baldwin Hardware has been known for its first-class quality and craftsmanship in door and cabinetry hardware. As an alumnus of the Baldwin Hardware Design Council, I can say I have seen the details and quality from design to the finished product. If you're looking for a new style and old-world craftsmanship, I can tell you there is only one Baldwin Hardware. Check out what would look great in your home at baldwinhardware.com.
It's Around the House. When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to Around the House with Eric G. and Caroline B. This is the midweek special. This is where we chat about the stuff that didn't make it into last weekend's show and didn't make it into next weekend's show. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, everybody. Happy midweek.
Happy midweek. What a fun weekend. And I didn't even get sunburned on Saturday, so I feel like it was a win.
You had like the best weekend, and I had like the worst.
Bummer, right? I had a great time. We went out to, Julie and I spent Saturday out at Harefest, Harefest, and it is the big summer festival here in Portland that is all cover bands. So basically you got about a dozen cover bands to sit there and hang out with, which is super fun. And it was like seeing all your favorite bands without having to see them all. And they had a joke kind of in one of their posts that I thought was kind of hilarious, Caroline. They said, come listen to your favorite bands. You won't notice because you didn't bring your glasses anyway. They'll be a little blurry. So it was pretty funny. It was a good time.
So you heard a little bit of this.
Yeah. And I probably should have brought some ear protection, but at the same time, it was the funnest, best, awesomest people watching you could ever imagine.
They had at this festival, Eric sent me video, and that was like the highlight of my weekend because I was dealing with home improvement nightmare. But he sent me video of this cover band for Heart. And if anybody knows Heart, they are not easy to emulate. And this band did it so well and so good that if you closed your eyes and listened to the video, you thought it was Nancy and Ann singing right to you.
Yeah. And it was that way. I mean, the Metallica cover band, the AC/DC cover band, even the Foreigner, you thought you were sitting there watching these bands, which is pretty impressive.
Nice. We got to go out there.
So,
it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Hey, I wanted to, before we talk about your nightmare, I wanted to bring up this one. Did you see that study, Caroline? I mean, you've been talking about glyphosate for decades, so this isn't something new. Did you see the CDC study that came out this weekend?
No. You're going to tell me something new.
I know. I'm going to tell you something new. Disturbing weed killer ingredient tied to cancer found in 80% of U.S. urine samples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
You're like, no surprise.
Can't.
So a report by Unit of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that out of 2,310 urine samples taken from a group of Americans intended to be a representative of the U.S. population, 1,885 were laced with detectable traces of glyphosate. So, which, is what you find in things like, Roundup, for instance.
Yeah. So when you go spray your weeds, or you go to your local box store and you buy a little container that looks like it's easy to use, it has a consequence.
It said almost a third of participants were children ranging from 6 to 18.
It's in the food chain.
It
ends up, it's also, I've tested the ductwork, so it's in your ductwork. So it's getting into your body one way or the other, airborne or through your food.
It's
bad.
This is an interesting one. So with that problem, it says more than 200 million pounds of glyphosate are used annually by U.S. farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. So we'll see.
And then we were talking about, we had our guest on that's coming up this week, isn't it?
Exactly. Not this week. So this week, let's talk about that real quick, just to get that out of the way for you guys. So coming up this week, we, in the first hour, we're going to be talking about this. We had a listener with a question about veterans discounts. So we dive into that, and then storage ideas for large things and how to build storage versus pay for storage. And then in hour number 2, we're going to get a little off the reservation, talking about a big DIY project, unlimited hydroplane racing and building and fixing boats. And we've got some great people with that one.
That's a fun one. That's like our fun. We're going a little off the rails, but it has to do with home improvement. It has to do with how to build things. We're not that far off.
And Strong Racing is the official race boat for the race team for the Around the House show. So we gotta give them a little love, considering we've got some races and some of our radio markets coming up here in the next month or two. So it's something that is always good, but we'll be talking about that. But
NASCAR.
We're going to have a garden expert coming up. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming up.
NASCAR on the water. That's what I call it, but it's better.
There you go. So that'll be really cool. We'll be talking about that. But we have a garden expert coming up that we'll let this cat out of the bag a little later. It is a world famous garden expert that Caroline convinced to come on the show, and this will be one for the ages. You won't want to miss this one coming up here. That'll be the following week, so not this weekend but next.
Yeah, so good stuff coming up, guys. All kinds of talk.
Yeah, so let's talk about your molding, door frame, flooring drama.
Let's put it this way. If a contractor messes up and does something really bad in your home, don't hire him back again. Just say, that's it. I'm done. And I'm not going to say who did this because it's embarrassing and I don't want to call anyone out, but they hired back a contractor that shouldn't have been hired back. And they decided to put in some engineered flooring. And somehow this person ended up with wood dust, whether it could have been from the parquet floor extraction or the cutting of the wood outside or the cutting of the wood inside, with wood debris through the entire house with dust. And a floor that is I'd say a 1/4 inch shy of the door trim because they didn't put the luan underneath.
No plywood underneath that. So they should have built that up to match. Yep. That's the problem, right? When you go in there, now you've got this issue around door frames where the door frames now are cut to exist to match the old floor. Mm-hmm. So now you got this 1/4 inch gap around the base of the door frame for where that comes down.
Yep. And so nightmare, and people get upset. And then you have to deal with it, being Eric and I.
Yep. So here's the interesting part too, is that there was a suggestion in a video that I thought was quite frankly, the hack way to do this was literally to put some tape down and fill that gap with wood putty.
No, you forgot the foam.
Meant to fill.
They put the foam in.
Oh yeah, there's the foam backer in there. So you put
this foam in.
The caulk. This is such a big gap in this video that they have that you put backer rod that you would use for caulking behind it, and then putty over the top of it. Not gonna work.
And then sand and sand.
Oh, yeah.
You would have so much sawdust. Sanding in your house, it would be a mess.
Yeah, I'll be honest. If you wanted to go that way, the better product to use would have been Bondo. But it still is a part that it's going to really want, like a vacuum cleaner or a mop or something is going to want to chip that and bust it out of there. You're going to fight that forever. And so to me, Caroline, the two ways that you can really fix that to me would be to pull the trim on the doors, reset the doors down on top of the floor, and put the casing back up on it. That's kind of the right way to do that. Or if you don't want to dig into that can of worms, you could cut some little pieces of wood, glue and slide them in there that would match, and then fill in sand and go that route.
And then I was asking about our buddies over at Sashco have some interesting kind of caulk, which could that potentially work?
Yeah, I mean, 1/4 inch, yeah, that could work in there. You could get in there and caulk that with like their Big Flex or one of those. And you could follow that around and do that if you didn't want to have to do any sanding, because that's kind of part of the issue too, is that obviously sanding affects this person that dust does. So we were trying to come up with a way to not have to sand that, right?
Yeah, well, it was such a big ordeal that the mess that was made, and I get it. I mean, who knows? They had no containment up at all, which was just moronic. And it was open to a big, cathedral ceiling. So all of this just floated up. It went on the chandeliers. It went up to the second floor, went in the bedrooms. So obviously somebody did something that wasn't supposed to be done, and left a big mess for cleanup, and my responsibility, and not fun.
No, not fun at all. So you've got some solutions there, but none of them are going to be great because it's going to be a bigger mess no matter how you do it.
And let's just talk about flooring really quick. Just give a recap, because we were talking about the differences between a pergo and an engineered floor, and then if you're doing an actual real wood floor. And so Eric had a good description for that. And so I just thought, why not a good point to touch on it?
So, that house had parquet flooring in it, which is those little squares of strips of oak that go in different, parquet floors. And that's made out of a real hardwood. So you go in there and that's typically a glue down. So you have to go down and strip it out.
And it came up nice.
And then usually
no
either came
no
up
water
nice.
damage.
Yeah.
So floor was good.
Yep.
Floor was good.
Yep. So then you have a few different options. You have tile. You have a real wood, sand and finish hardwood. You could go a pergo, which is like a laminate floor. You could go with a luxury vinyl plank, which is a vinyl click lock floating. Or you could go with that pre-finished, either solid wood floor or pre-finished, engineered floor, which is like a plywood.
And so
in this case,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in this case, it was chosen to be a engineered veneer floor that was glued down instead of floating.
And they lied because it was supposed to be a floating floor. And somehow in the process of them doing it, they said no luan in between. So you have your subfloor, then there was luan, then there was parquet. And explain what luan is if people don't know. It's just like a thin piece of plywood.
It's just like a mahogany plywood typically is what luan plywood is. It's just a hardwood plywood that is pretty dimensionally stable when it goes down there. It's not one of the soft pine ones or any of those other things of the fir. It's just a veneer that's just a good subfloor material.
So they said if they left out the luan, they failed to tell the homeowner that there would be a gap, right? So if you have this 1/4 inch of material that's not there anymore, you're going to have a space between now where your floor meets your door trims.
Yeah.
Or trim in general.
And the nice thing is with that luan plywood is it's a great subfloor material because it's not like, let's say you've got a 1/4 inch thick to build up, right? Like in this case, that would have fixed it if they would have put that down there. If you go get 1/4 inch like CDX plywood, it's the cheap stuff, you've got knots and holes and it's not perfectly level, and it's pretty rough. Where the luan is super smooth. It's been sanded. It works out really well for that. So it's a great filler material that's even, which won't show through a flooring surface.
Yep.
So that's the key right there. Yeah.
No luan meant 1/4 inch gap. Now, let me ask you a question. If they had chosen just to do the hardwood, which was my recommendation to begin with, would they have had the 1/4 inch gap? Could they have eaten that space with a thicker flooring material?
Yeah. Possibly, because I don't know what thickness this, engineered floor comes in different sizes. It can come on from like 3/8, or metric sizes all the way up to almost 3/4. I've seen some really thick engineered floor materials. So that's very unusual, but yeah, I've seen them pretty thick. So it's depending on what they put in there, but you could have either figured out a thicker engineered floor or put down underlayment to bring it up level.
I wonder if they messed up and like, could they have gone with a thicker engineered floor and not had this issue? Like, it seems like it was totally their unpreparedness of not getting the right thing.
Well, it's hard to say. Did they buy the flooring or did the contractor go buy the flooring and come in and do it as part of that?
The contractor purchased it, I guess, previously. They sized up what they wanted, color, tone, whatever, and then they ordered it and brought it in.
Couple things. Color tone might not have been available and it could have been only available in one thickness. That's very possible.
Very possible.
Super possible. At that point, though, you really kind of have to go in and say, hey, look, to do this right with the door, we got to put down like, 1/4-inch plywood down there to, get us built up, just for that underlayment. So that would have been the right thing to do. And of course, it sounds like they either for budget or a shortcut, they didn't do that.
Seems like these guys like to do shortcuts because like 2 weeks ago, they decided they were going to tile over the door frame and leave 1/8 of an inch of tile hanging over the door frame, which basically looked like hell. And then they wanted to change the door frame instead of changing the tile. And thank God shout out to Carl the Flash. He was like a highly recommended tiler.
Carl the Flash Leonard.
Yes. Highly recommended by Ardex. Saved the day. And so if you're looking for a tiler and you're in the Northeast, check out Carl the Flash. It's great.
Little shout out to a key member of the Global Tile Posse. Shout out to those guys. But yeah, seriously though, I mean, that's one of the things that, there's every time you deal with a floor like that and you don't put in the same thickness, you have things you're going to chase around. Maybe it's base trim. Maybe it's the door frames. Maybe it's lining up with a flooring surface on the other side. If it was a room, for instance, it was maybe hardwood and carpet or hardwood and maybe vinyl and a bathroom or tile. Not lining those things up can have consequences in many other little areas. So it's stuff you got to be paying attention to. I had a house that I was living in as a great example that had a kitchen. And this was a girlfriend a long time ago. I was living in her place and they had built up the floor so much. There was a transition walking into the kitchen that was almost 1 inch. So they had like 2 layers of vinyl on top of the old vinyl and then tile on top of that. Yeah, it was like linoleum, vinyl,
wood,
tile, all built up. Yeah, it was. And so there's this big ramp, but here's where the problem was. And this was the crazy part is when her dishwasher died and I got to go put the dishwasher in. I actually had to take the wood edge of the countertop off because it was a tile countertop with the wood edge just to get the dishwasher out because it was captured in there because they had tiled up to the front of the dishwasher. So it was a crazy hack deal on that one because you couldn't get that in there. So those are things you can always look too because the little toe kick in the front of the cabinets was only like 2.5 inches high where it should have been like 4 or 3.5. So it was bad.
A lot of these old houses that I've worked on, I mean, literally, I think one of the projects we did, there was 10 layers of flooring. And that was because, they start with like a real, say you have a real pumpkin pine, and then they go over it with a linoleum. And then they had they had asbestos. Then they had, what else was in there? It was this wool. There was a wool type of flooring. Then there was carpet. So it was like, there were literally 10 floors.
Jeez.
And they used to make this weird, back in the day, they used to make this weird tarry. It was like a tar, but it was a tile. So that was kind of weird too. So strange.
Well, they have that. So what they do is they had that tar mastic. So what it was, that's the asbestos mastic that they used to glue the tile or the linoleum down with. And that was filled with asbestos fibers to make it stronger.
There was something else though, too. It was like this, it almost looked like a jute or something. Like, it was like a material and it wasn't rug, but it was weird looking stuff. So, you never know what you're going to find in those old houses.
No, you never do. You never do. Yeah, exactly. Hey, I was going to say too, there's a couple things that I noticed, on our midweek special, I usually address any recalls and stuff. So an important one here is John Deere recalls lawn tractors due to crash and injury hazards. This is from the 7th of July.
That's not good.
So obviously they don't sell a ton of these because it's only about 160 units.
Still,
I'm like,
if you've got one,
that's not a lot, but But here's the hazard. The wheel hubs were not manufactured to spec and can fail, causing the tractor to lose braking and propulsion, posing crash and injury standards. So
Nice.
take a look over at Deere.com. Go into the recall information. Take a look. Make sure you've got the model number. But this one here appears to be a newer one, and literally the wheels could fall off. So be careful.
That's a bad day in the yard. Oh my God. That's a bad day. I thought I had a bad weekend.
That's a bad day. See, literally I drove the wheels off it. No, you really did. You really did. And then there was this is an interesting one here on that same day, July 7th, that was released by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Vornado agrees to pay $7.5 million civil penalty for failure to immediately report space heaters posing a fire hazard. So they got their hand slapped for not taking these space heaters, and because they had a defect that created an unreasonable risk of serious injury. So it could have caused an overheat, catch fire, burn, injury, death kind of stuff.
Not good.
So they got nailed by that one. So now these guys had a kind of a history of this, it seems, because in that same story, it says in 2008, Vornado Trust paid a $500,000 civil penalty to them on behalf of Vornado's predecessor, which was, again, a different kind of company, Vornado Air Circulation Systems, after it failed to immediately report overheating and fire incidents. So it seems like these guys have a little bit of a history of this maybe not working very well. And then it maybe turned around and changed their name to something similar, created a new LLC.
Great.
And had the same problem again.
Way to go, guys.
Just
champion.
A champion for the people right there. Let's just burn the houses down. Nice job. That's insane. That's insane.
Lots
well,
coming
Caroline,
up,
I hope you have we have some of our, I think, the best shows of the year coming up here. And I hate to set that expectation, but we've got some absolutely amazing interviews coming up that are going to be a little different, a little bit fun. So as always, make sure you tune in, and you can catch us on any podcast player or, of course, on the radio on any one of our stations nationwide for the radio show on the weekends. But of course, this midweek special doesn't show up on the radio.
Make sure you guys, if you're
Caroline,
doing any home improvement projects, check your contractors out. And if they make a mistake, just get rid of them. Don't be thinking they're going to do it better next time. It's their work ethic. You're never going to change that. I know it's in us to say, oh, well, maybe they just got it wrong and we can be forgiving. You just can't. It's going to cost you as the homeowner.
Those things never get better. If it went bad the first time, seems the next time it doesn't go any better or worse.
Ouch.
Not good. Not good. All right. Shall we wrap this up, Caroline?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. I'm Eric G.
And I'm Caroline B.
And you've been listening to Around the House.
Somewhere unseen and undiscovered, anywhere beyond the mean. Life is a love song, let's be lovers. We're all over the radio. Take my hand, I know where to go. All over the radio with you.
Hey, it's Eric G. from Around the House. Are you planning a decking or siding project this year? If you are, you've got to check out my friends at Millboard. Millboard is a completely different kind of composite decking and cladding that enhances outdoor spaces with enduring distinction. Hand-molded from the finest oak, it realistically mimics the natural grain and color of premium hardwood. If you're looking for something that doesn't look like plastic and instead real wood, check out Millboard.com. Make sure and check out that interview we did just a few weeks back. That's Millboard.com.